Yes, people, welcome back to the channel, and we are here for a new show, the Bok and Kiwi Show, and I'm joined by probably one of the most unbiased and realist people you will find on Rugby YouTube. Some like his opinions, others think he's totally wrong in everything he says. But I quite like him. From down under, not Australia, but the better rugby team in New Zealand. It is Hamish from Kiwi Lads.
Hello, mate.
Yes.
That was quite the intro. The part about some people just absolutely disliking everything I say was interesting, but I'm glad you like me. And yeah, hope you're doing well.
No, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, so welcome to the channel. Great to have you on. So, just for those people that don't know you, quick intro about you, your channel, and so.
So, I am the main voice of the Kiwi Lads YouTube channel, like it was mentioned. I am from New Zealand and we cover a lot of rugby on the channel, so that gives us many different opinions from all around the world, whether that's from South Africa, from New Zealand, from Fiji, from England. We've had it all throughout the November internationals, and it's been a pretty hectic period in the world of rugby. But now, of course, the URC coming back in. We've got some sevens that's on the cards as well, and the Champions Cup just around the corner, which I think we're covering most of it throughout this video.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's get straight into it all. We'll start with the last international game of the season. And it's hard to almost call it a contest because it wasn't in large parts of it. The Springboks with a 73-point win over Wales, keeping Wales scoreless. Of course, there was some controversy, or not controversy, some
Just a little
idiotic
bit.
um, moment by Eben Etzebeth with his red card. We'll get into that, but the Springboks with another really good win, and that's five out of five for us in the November internationals, and only two losses in this entire um, season. So yeah, a really good year for the Springboks in all, but um, just I think dominant also it's been a dominant year. Even if you look that like the Ireland France game, Springboks just been dominant. But just speaking on the game, what did you make of it?
Well, first off, with the Springboks as well, we've got to remember Rassi has rotated his squad more than any other coach throughout this season. So the fact that they have only had the two losses, the one at Eden Park to New Zealand and that freak accident of a game at the start of the Rugby Championship, which I still have no idea how that turned from 22-0 into 38-22 in favour of the Aussies. But outside of those two games, we have seen the Springboks consistently rotating throughout their squad and continuing to bring up the next generation of Springbok talent. But the game up against the Welsh, of course, there was always going to be a little bit of a change in the Springboks side just purely because of the guys returning into the URC as well as going back to Japan. But it went about how I expected. I'll be honest, I predicted 64-12, and I thought I was being quite harsh against the Welsh, but turns out I was being a bit harsh to the Springboks by saying that they'd only get the 64 points. It possibly could have been more. I know that people talk about that last moment, how maybe even 80-0 could have been on the card for the Boks, but overall, it was a great way to end off their season, and they started it in dominant fashion up against the Barbarians, making a statement up against that side, and then finishing it as well. Like, it's just been an insane year for Springbok Rugby. They are rightfully in that number one spot, heading into that World Cup draw. There's a small part of me that hopes they get drawn with Australia, so we get to see the Boks versus the Wallabies as the opening contest of the Rugby World Cup, because that would be absolutely incredible. But yeah, I think that this game in particular, the sad thing is people are going to forget that the Springboks had a brilliant performance up till the 78th minute. The controversy, everything about this game, it's hardly been mentioned. These blokes won 73-0 in this contest. It's the biggest losing margin for Wales at home up against any side, but the thing that overshadowed it, of course, was the red card.
Yeah. But I think this game, like, even though it was 73-0, I have to give also a bit of credit to Wales because it wasn't just a rollover. Like, when you see the tries, we had to work for it in some cases. For it, we had to build up a few phases. So I have to give Wales credit. I saw there was a stat, I think, like midway through in the second half, like Wales may, or start of the second half, they had a tackle completion rate of, I think, 92%. So, which was quite high. I was like, well, these guys have been defending a lot, but like it's not been like they've missed tackle after tackle. But I think again, once again, scrum dominance was the key, and I think we saw it in the other games as well this weekend with the URC games in terms of the scrum dominance, how effective the scrums have been for South Africa and the South African teams as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you
So,
look at the Sharks throughout last URC season as well. That was what won them some of their close games, wasn't it? Same with the Stormers, same with the Bulls, being able to get those penalties in the later stages of the game. I do think that they probably didn't go as hard at scrum time as they could have in that game, the Springboks, up against the Welsh. It definitely wasn't the game up against Ireland, how they just decided to keep on going to it time and time again. This time they were running the ball nicely and a lot of tries being scored by different members of the side. Only the double for Sasha Feinberg and Ngumay Zulu. Everyone else, seeing Gerhard Stennekamp and Wilco Low, the two men who started off each half by scoring the tries for the Boks. It was a well-rounded team performance. Once again, though, no one's talking about that. Everyone's talking about the big moment, which you got down here, the headline, at the end of the game.
So, but let's speak about that moment. A finger in the eye. Now, if I got that, if I was Alex Mann, personally, I wouldn't have let Etzebeth get off the field. I would tell a few Welsh guys, come help me. Let's take him down, like tackle him and give him a few punches. That's just me personally. But yeah, it's probably, I think he's probably gonna get more than Jan Hendrik Wessels because he got a 9-game ban for allegedly grabbing the crown jewels. So
different kind of balls.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it is. It's idiotic, and I don't understand why. There is some screenshots and stuff saying there was a punch or a slap across the face by Alex Mann, but if we even though we know that retaliation is you don't retaliate no matter what the circumstances are. So unless it's somebody that's punched you in the face and you punched them back, that's probably then you can maybe fair, but he's punched and you've poked him in the eyes. I don't know how fair that is, really. So yeah, but what did you make of it?
I just find it interesting you say you shouldn't retaliate. Just beforehand, you were saying get a few of your mates, hold them down while you punch the absolute daylights out of them. So it's a bit different maybe in the international rugby scene. I feel like that's something you see in the 1970s or 1980s on some of those old school kind of tours. I know that Richard Lowe for the Kiwis, I think he got about 9 months for an eye poke, I believe, way back in the day, although he actually went digging to try and get that eyeball out of the socket rather than just a little graze across the top. But no, it's something that you don't expect from Eben Etzebeth. And don't get me wrong, people like to call him, like, they call him a thug, but he's not actually, I don't think, that bad in general. Of course, after an eye poke, people are going to debate that very heavily, but he actually has a decent disciplinary record. I believe this is actually one of his first red cards, isn't it, for the Springboks? As much time as he spent out there on the field, he doesn't get them too often from being the most capped Springbok of all time. So for me, World Rugby have a very tricky scenario at the moment because we've just seen them say that Franco Mostert's red was not one. We've seen them give Ludiaka the ban, and now you've got Eben Etzebeth there. At the moment, it just seems to be if you're a Springbok lock, you're just going through the motion of going and seeing World Rugby in a meeting each and every week. Jean Klein, he might be next. We'll see what happens with him at Munster when he does return in the Champions Cup. But it just seemed uncharacteristic, even though he's an aggressive player. It just seemed like something obviously really made him snap, and maybe he forgot he was supposed to be out there on the field playing a game of rugby. But yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. Have you found some red card information?
Yeah. Apparently, according to what I can find,
This
it's
is when
his
you're going to say
first
like 57 red cards.
Yeah. No, it is his first red card in international rugby, I believe.
So as aggressive and as physical and as dominant as you sometimes see him, he normally legally hits people. And in this scenario, that's why it's so confusing. I know that stuff around Alex Mann and what may have happened beforehand, obviously there was something because, normally he's got a temper, but he doesn't just go and fully snap, does he? And like some people are saying, he would have been better off just throwing a punch, probably would have got less of a suspension. Could have gone for your tactic, just hold him down and give him a whack.
No, but let's see what they do, because they have they gave Lewis. They gave him 3 games. That was for headshot. They gave Jan Pesos for 9 weeks. So let's see.
Although that's an interesting one, because in this scenario, of course, Eben Etzebeth, if there was something done first by Alex Mann, he's actually retaliated, hasn't he? And you could argue that the player from Connacht who did retaliate on Jan Hendrik Wessels for grabbing his testicles, allegedly, he didn't get anything. So it's the question of whether or not they're going to look at that breakdown enough. And then if, let's just say, for instance, all hearsay at this point in time, theoretical, if Alex Mann has gone for Eben Etzebeth's eyes on the ground, yes, you shouldn't retaliate with an eye poke of your own, but is it an eye for a literal eye in that scenario?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. And we will have to see then, because but it depends, because maybe Etzebeth just accepts the ban and he can get some rest, spend some time with his family. Maybe that was the plan after all. And a nice holiday, have a year off, and then when World Cup is back on, he's on the plane and he's ready for the World Cup. Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, it's definitely an interesting one, and hopefully one that will be hopefully the right decision, or a decision that sides with the majority of the rugby fan base.
I was going to say, what is the right decision in this scenario? Is it a long ban? Is it a short one? I've seen quite a few people saying that 12 weeks seems to be about justified. Of course, that's not good news if you're a Sharks supporter, as you're going to lose one of your premier locks. But yeah, it's a tricky one to judge.
It is. But I think you will definitely try to find some like evidence of what Alex Mann did as well. So the sanction guidelines for an eye poke is low end 4 weeks, mid range 8 weeks, then top end 12 weeks, 12 plus 12 weeks, 12 plus, and then max 52 weeks. So maximum it can only be out for almost a year. I would probably go. It depends what the situation was beforehand, but let's say that didn't happen, like there was nothing, it's just a push and shove. Then I'm probably looking at maybe 12, 15 weeks around there, because unnecessary, 70 points up, and now decide to inflict physical pain even more. So, yeah.
Well, the thing is, that wasn't even the worst eye poke of the day. I think that went to Aaron Wainwright from his teammate Tame Plumtree. He really got in there, and Wainwright had some blood coming out of that eye. So I mentioned about it on the review as well. I'm just glad that Alex Mann, in this case, seems like his eye's all right, because that's when it gets really bad. You know, if he had any sort of blindness after the game or anything like that, then Etzebeth doesn't just look at that short-term suspension. Like, that's when it gets really not into a good place. So the good news is it seems like Alex Mann is all right, or at least that is the rumor going around, because if he wasn't and had any sort of eye injury, like, Etzebeth may almost have kissed his career goodbye.
Yeah, no, definitely. But let's move on then from international rugby into club rugby, and the URC started off. For me personally, it was not a good weekend.
Why is that?
The Bulls lost against the Lions only for the second time in URC. For second time in the URC history, at Loftus. Let's, before we talk about the Bulls and how bad they are, let's focus on the Lions. I think a really good performance from them. I think physically they almost wanted it more. Like, they didn't just go down without a fight that we have seen at times. I think physically they fronted up and they showed like they want to do this. Like, they showed intent, they showed some fight. So the Lions had 3 wins from 3 of the 3 losses on tour. Since being back in South Africa, they've won 3 games in a row. So they're on a good patch of form, and they're now in the top 8, top 7 now. So no, they are doing really good work now, the Lions. It seems like they have a bit more understanding, and I also think there's more fight in them. Like, if you look at that Benetton game earlier on the season, it looked like too easy for Benetton, because they scored 40 points on the Lions in the end, which was a crazy result, because you're expecting maybe a close game, max 15-point gap, but in the end it was almost over for 20. I think over 25 in the end. So yeah, but credit to the Lions, man. What did you make of?
Well, I think that the second half was the part of it that was almost more impressive. Yes, that flying start was incredible for the Lions, and definitely something that many people weren't anticipating. A 17-0 up against the Bulls in the early stages of that game is absolutely unheard of. But the fact that they outscored the Bulls in the second half as well, you know, there was that little patch at the end for the Bulls where they scored themselves 2 tries in quick succession, scored 14 points, whereas the Lions throughout that second half, they had done their job up till that stage. They'd already scored the 3 tries, so 21 points to 14 in a second half up against the Bulls at Loftus, and maybe that is down to the altitude factor, the fact that the Lions are already used to that. But, you know, it's not too often you don't see a Bulls late comeback that all but results in a victory, and to be fair, they were pretty close. Although there was one of those last tries that did look like a blatant forward pass that they just let slip because it was getting exciting at the end of the game. But overall, you know, 10-point win for the Lions, not giving the Bulls a bonus point for being within 7. They did end up getting the bonus for having the tries in the end, so that is one good thing about that game for the Bulls. But no, the Lions, I think the cohesion as well, the fact that they don't lose 10, 15 Springboks every once in a while does definitely help. The Bulls not having Andre Pollard, I think, also did hurt them a little bit. Don't get me wrong, Keegan Johannes, he seemed to have a solid enough game there, but definitely for that second half, that's where you need someone with that experience of a Pollard or Ruan Nokia. I was mentioning about it all the time, that had he had his leadership for this Bulls side, that could have been a game changer. Normally you'd see a Marcel Kutsi or someone like that in the loose forward trio. They didn't have him for this game. So, yeah, I think the Bulls will bounce back. Don't get me wrong, she's been a bit of an up and down roller coaster of a start. The Lions can say the same thing. The Sharks, they can say the same thing. At the moment, the Stormers, they're the only side that at this point in time are showing some consistency. But even then, you know, they had a bit of a shaky game up against Munster as well. So it's intriguing. I feel like it's going to take 1 or 2 weeks for the rust to wear off of getting back into the URC and Champions Cup swing of things. But that's when we're going to see, I believe anyway, those South African derbies that will fire all the sides up. They'll probably injure each other a little bit there too. But after that, that's when we're going to see the South African sides really start pushing for those top podium spots.
No, we definitely need to, because at this point it's only the Stormers really that's been putting up a fight for the South African teams. While you look even at Leinster, like even though they lost 3 in a row as well, but now they are starting to come back. So yeah, I think the South African teams need to come back a bit. But I think we now go on to the Bulls. For me, it was again, as much as I want to look at Johan Ackerman as a coach and look at like what he's done, because it hasn't been great. I can't say that, because you look at the mistakes we made. Let me just try find the stats. But I think we at one stage we considered like 14 turnovers or something like that. Like, I can't blame the manager for them losing the ball at the breakdown. I can maybe blame him for not training them in terms of the defense or stuff. But if you concede so many stuff or so many knock-ons, I can't blame the coach. So if we look at the defense, tackle success is in the high 50%, but missed 28 tackles out of 93, which is a bit worrying. But the Lions missed 30 tackles. So they made
it was just those South African derbies. You're always going to see quite a few missed tackles by both sides. It's just that fast attacking style.
Yeah. If you look turnovers lost, it's 18. Like, losing about 20 turnovers, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Which I just find, I don't know how that happened almost.
Yeah.
Because that's just, it doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know what the knock-on count is, but there's probably a few in there. I would say at least 10 or so. But yeah, I think we need to build some consistency. Like, I know he's talking about injuries and stuff, because we have had a few injuries, but forget the injuries. Try get your best 11 without the Springboks, because the Springboks aren't gonna be there always. Like, that's the unfortunate harsh truth. Look at a guy like Ronald K. I believe he played in all 5 games almost for the Springboks in the November internationals. So he probably can't. Probably only bring him back next year, like, because you can't. You need some rest. Like, even though the new thing is 30 games a season, and he's at least almost played 10 already, and there's still a long season to come up. So I think he has to find his best team without the Springboks, and then when the Springboks come back, you walk low, and then you can integrate them in. But I think attacking-wise, we look very good. It's just on the defense and in terms of having more control of the situations.
Yeah, it just seemed to be every once in a while they looked lost out there, the Bulls. And those knock-ons were not helping, in those later stages of the contest when you're starting to get it almost going. Like Cobus Visa off of the bench, I counted at least 2 or 3 drop balls from him just in general, carrying without even contact with his arms or anything. The ball was just slipping out of the hands, and it's always a weird one when you're only seeing one side drop the ball. Don't get me wrong, the Lions had their handling errors there too, but it just seems to be at the moment the Bulls, it's almost the basics that are letting them down. They can score brilliant try of the year candidate style tries. You know, they've got that skill level in the backs, but every once in a while, just a simple fundamental of catch a ball and pass it to a guy on your outside seems to be the big struggle. And maybe that is down to the chemistry of having guys in and out of the side. I think that Cameron Honeycomb, when he makes the return for the Bulls, that's going to be a game-changing type of player because, you know, Eldrick Lowe, they left so late, making his way out onto the field. And I just felt like the loose forward trio didn't quite have that impact that people were anticipating. And maybe that is because they had, you know, Ludwig was the captain, so they weren't going to take him off. But I don't see him as the best captain option. He's probably not even, for me anyway, in the top 2 or 3 for the Bulls. There are a lot of other guys I feel like even giving Willie LaRue, as angry as the man can be at 15, giving him the captaincy could have been a decent idea because he's already talking to the ref anyway, so might as well let him do it legally.
I probably would have given it to Acker. But then again, I don't know how vocal he is, but like you want someone like experience as well. So probably Acker. So yeah. Oh yeah, give it to Willie. But one thing I want to note what didn't make sense to me is why he took off both of our centers. Like he took off David Crow early in the game, and I haven't seen anything about an injury or something. And then he also took off Jan Serfontein early in or start of the second half as well. Which
I would say
me.
Creel's got to be an injury because he's the type of player you wouldn't take off tactically that early. I wouldn't say so. Maybe there is something there. I don't know whether or not that was a already known injury or whether it was something that happened in the game because we did see Henko van Wyk. He went down with the arm injury, didn't he, for the Lions? But yeah, it just seemed to be. I mean, Cheswell Euster, what a player he is, coming off the bench and just looking like he was going to completely change the game. That man's only like 20 or 21 years old, so he's got a very bright future for whoever he ends up playing for. But yeah, just, I don't know, the midfield, if they lose David Creel to an injury, I just feel like that's a big gap that they've got to fill in this Bulls back line. And I don't know whether or not they can do it with maybe you do play Keegan Johannes as the 10 and then you stick Pollard in your number 12 for a little bit. Just try and have some sort of playmaker mix and match in that regard. But it just seemed like getting the ball to the wingers was a mission and a half at times just because no one quite knew where they were supposed to be in that centre pairing.
Yeah. But speaking about wingers, Sebastian de Klerk. What a player.
He's a very handy player. I wanted to see him for the Springboks up against the Welsh. He was in my lineup prediction, but of course, Rassi said, no, we've got Dwayne, just in case. We've got Dwayne Vermeulen who can come back in.
Yeah, we'll put Quaha on the wing. Put Dwayne in the forwards, put Quaha on the wing. So, yeah, but, yeah, no, he's a really talented player. Is he better than Edward van der Merwe? Like in terms of Bok wingers?
I've seen a lot more of Edward van der Merwe taking the high ball safely. And I'm very much a fan of the guys who can take the high ball. That is why someone like a Cheslin Colby, even though he hasn't got that same stature as some of the wingers around, he still beats them in that aerial challenge because, and this is not down to how the Springboks play, this is just down to how sides in general play. There's a lot more kicking around that halfway line. And if you can retain that ball, van der Merwe also offers you 15. De Klerk, I think, has played there a little bit, but not a massive amount. But for me, I would still go Edward van der Merwe, which probably annoys a lot of Bulls supporters. But I do think that van der Merwe, he's kind of waited for his opportunity, and hopefully he does get more of them in the future. I think Ethan Hook is causing problems in terms of those selections out on the wing at the moment for the Boks, in terms of where does he fit in? Is he above a Kurtley Arendse at this point in time, or is he still You're saying yeah?
I don't know, but it depends what you want. Because if you want the physicality of it, I think Ifanuka brings that.
Yeah.
And let's say Andreas Eisen, you want to give him some rest, you can play Ifanuka off the bench or start Ifanuka. Say you're gonna play a full 80, we'll bring on Kirtley off the bench and move you to center. Because well, it's an interesting one. But only Rossi knows what he wants for his team. Yeah. But moving from this to a game that I'm very disappointed in one of the teams. The Stormers with a fantastic one up against Munster, I have to say.
Did it hurt to say that?
Munster, yeah. I'm not going to repeat it. It's very hard to acknowledge the Stormers being good. So, yeah, but exceptional one for them. Munster just didn't have the gas tank to last the full 80 almost. But the Stormers, the subs done really well. John Dobson brings on 6 forwards at one time, and as soon as that happens, they get a few tries, and it's a turnaround for them. But you watched the game in a bit more detail than I did. What did you make of the whole game and stuff?
Well, it just seemed like Munster did all the hard work to win it and then just continued to let it slip. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a great comeback from the Stormers, but that was Munster's game to lose. And they somehow managed to lose it. Like, they were in control. Tyke Byrne, he was having a phenomenal start to the game. I thought that Thomas Ahern and that number 4 jersey, that man was absolutely everywhere. For Munster, their backline was solid, but I don't know what the difference was in that second half, whether or not it was down to fatigue or whether it was just the fact that the Stormers felt like they still had a pretty good shot of getting back into it. But when you're leading 21 points to 6 at half time, you shouldn't go on to lose a game. But then it was the discipline as well. That Gavin Coombs yellow card, that seemed to change the momentum a little bit, even though they didn't really score too much during that period. I think it was right in the last minute of it when Dylan Mart manages to score the try. But that was the stage where all of the fatigue and everything just really set in for Munster. And they went from controlling the game to trying to survive it. And then in those closing moments, I mean, it was very close to Munster almost doing enough to then get back into it. Of course, there was that little bit of controversy at the end of the game. That's becoming a very common word in the world of rugby at the moment. But no, it was thoroughly deserved for the Stormers. A very good win to get, definitely because heading into that game, they were said that because they didn't have Sasha, Damien Valimza, and those type of guys, that they would struggle up against what was considered Munster's stronger side out there on the field. But no, I think they'll be more than happy pulling off that win. But job's not done. Champions Cup round the corner. They've got Bayern, who are, for me, a little bit of an unknown side in some regards. But it could be a very intriguing game.
In terms of top 14, I want to check. Where are they? They beat Lyon. Oh.
I think they're actually silently a decent-ish team. They're currently 5th at the moment in the rankings.
Yeah, 9 points behind Toulouse. That's not too bad. Got 2 wins?
Ahead of Bordeaux as well by the 1 point, which is a bit of a big one.
Yeah, that's not like they're doing quite decent. Even Pau, I see looking at the top 14 table, is doing quite well, and they were. I think are they in the Champions Cup even?
They might still be in the Challenge Cup, are they? No, they're in the Champions Cup this year. They've got Bristol and they've got Northampton as their first 2 games.
Tough games. Those. But yeah, Stormers, like, they look good. The question is that I think that loss will come sooner or later. Well, I hope so.
You got your fingers crossed for that one.
Fingers crossed, toes crossed. So I want to see what their response will be then. That will be the big thing. But it seems like as soon as they got rid of Bok, now they start to do better. So who knows? Maybe Bok was the problem. Maybe, who knows?
Was he really though?
No, no, I don't think so. But I don't think Munster will suffer a lot from this. I just think it's a game that you dominated, but and you shouldn't have lost. I think it's just a game you forget almost, and go back to the drawing board. And they have easier games in the Champions Cup. If I'm looking at it,
I think they've got Bath and Gloucester, I believe, for Munster.
Yeah, Bath is probably the big game.
Yeah.
Because Bath are a really good team. But other than Bath, it's probably Gloucester. I don't know Gloucester that well. They probably should beat them. So yeah. But no, the Stormers, they're on the right track. Like they keeping consistent. And the next game in the URC is the Lions. So yeah, at home, and then the Bulls. Oh my!
Is that one at home or away for that Bulls
away,
game?
and then the following weekend at home.
Okay.
So it's we play them twice. It's on the 27th, and then the next weekend. There. So it's like a block there. The 27th of December. Yeah, the 27th on the Saturday, and then a week later play them again. So now, So few South African derbies for them, and yeah, let's see how long they last. So yeah, but going from the best South African team to the worst at this moment, the Sharks with loss, and it's a big loss, 44 points to 17. I definitely did not go for that. I was thinking more close game, but Connacht to edge it, because they're the home team. But yeah, very disappointing. Very, in terms of that. Yeah, I don't know. The Sharks just seem like underperforming. Like, it's disappointing to see them like this almost.
Well, they actually started the season, those first couple of games, they had some decent showings, even though they were away from home. And I think they may have suffered one or two losses in those very early games. They had that draw up against the Dragons, but that was actually a decent Sharks showing with the squad that they did have available. But, when you look through at some of their players like Emmanuel Tachuka, like, he's one of those guys that started the season with an absolute hiss and a roar, but now they're playing him at 7, which I believe is one of his most... Well, it's not his worst position to be able to score tries, but it's certainly not his best. He should be in the number 8 jersey for myself. I think that would make a huge difference in the way that the Sharks side are able to attack. But, they got that early try of Fez and Barter, and I thought, oh, okay, Sharks are going to be ready to go for this contest and start to get something going. But it was the ill discipline as well. Like, there were so many... like, just blatantly dumb penalties. That Jason Jenkins one that he got yellow carded for, you just can't afford to have that in a game. When you're away from home as well, that adds that little bit more, because then you get the crowd into it and then they start backing their side. But no, the Sharks aren't quite doing what people would like the Sharks to do. And now, like we mentioned, they may not have an Eben Etzebeth returning into their side. So it's tricky at the moment, because they've got all the talent in the world. You look at someone like a Grant Williams making his way off the bench, but in this Sharks environment at the moment, he can't really thrive because there's just no cohesion in the way that they're playing.
it almost feels like they're playing with shackles, like something's
Mm.
holding them back. Because they look good, like they should be winning. Look at those names, and other times there's like, okay, there's a good glimpse, like that was a good try. Now receive the kickoff and then go from there. And there's just nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, very disappointing from them. But yeah, they have some tough games coming up. I believe the Sharks. Let's check quickly.
I think they've got
Yeah,
Bordeaux,
lose
don't
away
they?
from home.
Oh no, Toulouse. Yeah, that's going to be rough.
Yeah, and then Saracens at home. That's tough as well, to be fair. And then, of course, the Sharks Bulls game. Sharks always beat us. That's there's something I can guarantee, and that's the Sharks beating us in Durban. That's almost like no matter what. It seems like of recent years they always beat us in Durban, but let's maybe this time we'll do better. Who knows? Um, then they've got the Lions in that block there, so tough games for them. Like the lose Saracens, Bulls, Lions. It's a tough set of fixtures for them, definitely.
Yeah, there's no
Um,
real easy way of getting back on the right track, is there? Because
yeah,
even if you pull off one big victory, the next week you're up against another world-class side, and that can easily just
yeah,
take you back down. But yeah, for the
yeah,
Sharks, hopefully they can start finding their rhythm. They're going to be leaving it pretty late when it comes to that top 8 of the URC. Currently, they've got themselves the 8 points, although that top 8, 15 is where the 8th side is sitting points-wise. So they need, similar to what we saw last year, they're going to need like 5 wins in a row just to push themselves towards even being close to contention.
yeah,
But yeah, that top 8 race, it's getting very interesting. All sides
yeah.
up to 11 have got 10 or more points. Even Zebre, they're trying to get in the mix.
Well, they are in the mix. Like they've got just need to win a few games. Like they've got games up against Benetton and then Benetton Glasgow. That's their next 3 games. So get a sneaky win over Benetton, and who knows? They could be right in there. So yeah, but moving on from that, just looking at other results and stuff. So the other URC games, the let's have a look. So Ulster beat Benetton comfortably. I watched that game, and Benetton, yeah, they don't seem like a team that's clicking at this moment in terms of momentum and stuff. But Ulster, I have to say, Ulster have made huge improvements. I think them and Munster are probably up. Them, Munster, and the Stormers and Cardiff, like the top 4 right now, have been on another level compared to the other teams. So, props to Ulster there. Then the Dragons against Leinster. Leinster left it late, 24-10. Um, I talked about to you about that high shot on the Dragons player. I can't remember his name, but 5 minutes left. The Dragons probably get a try there. It's 17 all. Who knows? But yeah, that was an interesting call by the referee. I have to say, that high shot, but Munster left it late. What did you make of like that high shot on
Yeah, it's one of those ones that there's just no consistency at the moment. As much as they're trying to kind of make sure that it's all about the same, it's just not. Like, depending on the league, depending on the game, depending on the ref, will depend on the outcome of certain decisions. It's one of those ones it easily could have gone either way. In this case, it did go Leinster's way, and they were able to get themselves that victory. But yeah, the amount of head contact that we've seen throughout just even November has been absolutely huge. The international games, you're seeing 2 or 3 times per game now that players are colliding with each other up high. But, it's a tricky one to be able to police because the mitigating factors are always at least somewhat there in most cases because of the dynamic movement and how quickly, players are moving into contact. But yeah, overall, I would say that Leinster, they'll be thankful that they managed to get that win by the 14. Ulster, for me, I'll be honest, they are probably my dark horse of this whole URC competition. I actually think they're going to go very well throughout this year, and honestly, I think they could win the whole thing if they get their momentum right heading into the final stages of the comp. But no, they're looking like a good side at the moment. It was actually a good weekend for Irish teams, with the exception of Munster, who could have also joined in with a great win too.
Yeah. But then Zebra Cardiff got off with a decent win. Decent one by Cardiff. I expected Cardiff to win. And they did get the win. They left it a bit late, and Zebra almost mounted a comeback, but they got the job done in the end. Then Ospreys Edinburgh. I didn't watch the game, but looking at the score, it seems like it was a close game, like 19-17. So, yeah, Edinburgh finally get a victory, and they have now some momentum. I think it's back-to-back ones or something like that for them.
Well, they're just one of those sides that are always entertaining. Like, they have had so many close games throughout this URC season. Their last one, I think they did lose to Cardiff by 1 point, if I'm correct. Then from there, the week before, a big win over Benetton. I want to say Benetton have actually had a rough season so far, but they have still got potential of making their way back in.
So they lost to Cardiff by 1 point. They smashed Benetton by 40 odd points. Lost by 1 point to Munster. And they lost to Zebra, and then of course that postponed game against Ulster and beat Osprey. So it seems to be at home Edinburgh win, because it's 2 from 2 at home, but then 3 losses away from home, but 2 of them by 1 point.
So there's extra bonus points. By the time you get to that top 8 at the end of the season, that could be the difference. Just that little bit of a extra boost for Edinburgh.
Definitely. Then what is the last game? Of course, Scarlet's Glasgow. Now, while I was doing the watch along, I saw this and I was like, what's going on there? And I still haven't watched the game back, but I'm still shocked at how Scarlets won, because coming into this, we were thinking Scarlets are down and out, like, especially after what we've seen before the break.
Yeah.
But massive respect to Scarlets for pulling off that victory. And I can't even say it was a weak Glasgow side, because they still had Johnny Matthews there. So they still had the big guys, like Johnny Matthews was there. I think, who else? Jamie Betty was there. Gregor Brown. You Dan Lancaster was still there, decent player. And then Carl Rowe was even still there. Josh McKay. So it was a decent Glasgow lineup. So I was expecting Glasgow. It might be tight, but Glasgow should win.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
Do you know who else Glasgow have lost to this season?
Yeah. Wow.
Up by 14, went down 16 points to 14 in the end. I just don't think they like playing away from home, unfortunately. They've had some decent wins away from home throughout the last couple of seasons, and their defence is normally the thing that really does win them the games, but not having George Horn seems to be the difference between scoring about 30 points and scoring 0. He seems to be just that impactful on the way that they're able to play. Same with having the likes of a Xander and a Matt Fagerson and that loose forward trio. Jack Dempsey too, being available for them makes a massive difference. Rory Darsh. Now I'm just listing all the Glasgow players, but yeah, I do think that they will bounce back. They're a good side. They are also in the Champions Cup. I'll just have a quick look, see who they are playing. They are going head to head up against Sale Sharks and then also Toulouse. But that Toulouse game is at home for Glasgow, so that might be a big one if they can somehow pull off the victory there.
The Sale Sharks game is big. How are Sale the Sale Sharks? I think they're, from what I know, they are a good team. I don't know where they're in the league. They beat Exeter. Where are they? So they are second. Wait, is this the Champions Cup? Are they in like two pools? The English teams.
Not sure. One second, I'll get it up for you.
Because I see them in second in their pool, but I don't know if it's like other competition or is it the league.
Okay, so Sale are currently 7th in the Premiership. 2 wins, 4 losses, 13 points. Yeah, and just when you were asking about Gloucester, they're actually 9th at the moment. So not quite where they want to be.
Yeah, so they can get a win up against Sale at home. Sorry, away from home. So yeah, I don't think there's any news. They're 7th. 7th are going quite well for your Fiji and Australia. It seems like.
Yeah, it's a different format and it feels weird. I feel like quite a few people haven't quite got invested in the new format just at this stage with the 8 teams rather than the 12 or the original 16. But yeah, the Blitzbox not quite doing as well as some were anticipating for this League of the Sevens. But then saying that, when you're in a pool with France, Argentina, and Fiji, like all it takes is to drop one game and you're done. You know, but they had a good win over the French.
I think that's almost what happened. They dropped one game, and then they saw France win against Fiji, which basically meant they were out. So
yeah, because Fiji got within the 7 points. Had they been outside of that 7-point window, if South Africa were able to beat Argentina by, I think it was about 20 points, they would have actually qualified ahead of the Fijians.
So so let's see what happens in the sevens. Of course, Cape Town Sevens next weekend, which will be good to see. So yeah, Australia and New Zealand dominating it. Seems so. What happened in the Fiji game against New Zealand? I saw the game for but then I didn't catch the second half.
So New Zealand got a decent lead going, and then Fiji did the classic Fiji thing, which was coming back and getting extremely close. And then New Zealand did their classic New Zealand thing, and that was scoring a try in the very last second of the game to then, unfortunately, ruin the chance for the other team of being able to win.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much the classic New Zealand kind of timeline, but Fiji had some really nice moments throughout the middle of the game. They probably deserved the victory, to be fair, but New Zealand structurally just kept together that little bit better near the end of the contest and managed to pull off that victory, get them through the final.
So, the sevens going again. That's good to see. We can discuss the format, but I think we'll leave that for another video because it's an interesting one. But thank you, Amy, for coming onto the channel. Appreciate it, really do. Quickly just shout out your channel again and where the people can find you at.
So it is the Kiwi Lads, even though at the moment it is just myself. So it's kind of the Kiwi Lad, but then you can add an S on the end and then that'll take you over. We're live all throughout weekends. Some would say too much, as it was mentioned at the start, how some say, nah, don't listen to this fella. But yeah, we are always live, always at random hours of the night. And we'll be covering that Champions Cup with high anticipation. See how the sides are going in the future.
Yeah, but thank you again for coming on. Do make sure to drop a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you all in the next video. Cheers, people.